Hey guys, and welcome to another Art Extra with Miss Summer. Now the goal of these projects is just to give you something fun and maybe different to do at home to express your creativity and to build some skills artistically. Remember that none of these projects are graded or required. These are all just for fun, something extra you can do on top of art class that we're already having. Now this week, I was really excited about this project. It was something different for me. I had never watercolored a lion's face before. So I saw this project, I thought it looked like a challenge, but it looked like something that you and I could both do with a little bit of time and effort. And I really had fun making it. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And I definitely think it's something that you can do. Now, with this project, I want to give you a little bit of backstory about this lion and a mouse that you can see down here at the bottom of his face. That's why his eyes are looking over to kind of down and to the left. He's looking at this little mouse that's perched up here near his mane. This painting comes from that fable that you've probably heard before, The Lion and the Mouse. And in that story, the lion gets irritated by this mouse that's kind of crawling on him. He pulls the mouse up and he's going to eat him. But the mouse begs for mercy and he decides to let him go because the mouse tells him, hey, if you let me go, I may be able to help you one day. Well, the lion's kind of amused by this because that seems totally improbable. But he decides to let the mouse go. And in the end, the mouse does help the lion. The lion gets caught by these hunters up in this big net. And he starts roaring really loudly. None of the other animals in the Serengeti stop to help him. But the mouse knows what he can do. He can climb up the tree and into the net that's holding the lion. He can chew with his rodent teeth through those ropes and let the lion be free. And that's exactly what happens. So the lion gives mercy to the mouse, and then the mouse returns the favor and sets the lion free. Now that's an old story that lots of us have heard or read in storybooks when we were little. But a man by the name of Jerry Pinkney took this fable and wanted to make his own twist on it. And he did a wordless watercolor picture book based on this fable. And he won a Caldecott Medal for that. And that's one of the highest awards you can win in children's literature. He did not intend to make it wordless. He was going to add words to it. But after he made all of his sketches, he thought that his sketches told the story sufficiently, so it was left a wordless picture book. And I looked through it in preparation for this project, and the pictures are beautiful. I would encourage you to look at it maybe when libraries open up again. You can look at this picture book. It's worth looking at. The art is lovely. So this picture is kind of a take on the cover of this storybook. This is kind of like a child's rendition of the cover of this storybook. Now in the cover, there's a big lion's face. You can see the mane behind him, and he's glancing down out of the corner of his eye down at this mouse, and the mouse is on the back cover. So we've kind of put those two, the front and back cover, together to make this. Now, I'm attaching links to this below so that you can get the drawing guides because they're really important for this. You want to see the lion's face most importantly, and then you want to see the little cartoonish mouse. Also, I have a value sheet that kind of shows you the different shading and light and dark areas of the lion, and that'll be helpful to you as you're learning where to place your light and dark watercolors to build up color. In this art project, we talk about several different elements of art. We're talking about balance because we want to make a proportionate face that's symmetrical and balanced on both sides. We're also talking about texture because we create a lot of texture using shading and just pencil strokes on creating the fur of the animal. And then we are going to talk about value, which is another element of art, and that has to do with the different variations of light and dark in a picture. And you see all of that shading in this value guide and also in the different light and dark areas of the lion's fur and mane. We talk about all of those elements when we do this. Now, The first thing you want to do is to get out your piece of paper. If you have watercolor paper, that's what I always use. It holds the watercolor really well. Use that definitely. If you don't, that's fine. You could attempt to do this with colored pencils, I think might work. If you did this with paper and colored pencils, you could do that. You just want a pencil, an eraser, and some good paper. Sometimes sketchbook paper is a little bit thicker, so if you don't have watercolor paper, maybe you could grab your sketchbook and sketch your lion's head in the sketchbook. Now, I want to give you a tip about whenever you're drawing a face, whether it be an animal or a person. I always use my ruler a lot. That helps you make sure that your nose is where it needs to be. Your eyes are equal distance from the side of your face. They're the same width across and up and down. It also helps you place where, if you were drawing a person, where the ears would be, that they would be equal on both sides, how long they would be. Your ruler is your friend when you are drawing a portrait. And I used my ruler a lot. I always use it when I'm drawing a person as well, to make sure things are equal. Very helpful. So I used my ruler and then the simple drawing guide that I'm attaching of a lion to draw out all just the basic features of the lion first, starting with the nose and then going up into the eyes and working out the mouth details. And then finally drawing, kind of like sketching out where the circle of the head was going to be. Now, I drew this twice. The first time I drew it, there were parts I liked of it better than this, and parts I didn't. I sketched this out the first time I drew it, so that I could have a general feeling for how this picture was going to go. And I wanted to sketch out where my light and dark values were going to be. So I did this sketch first, kind of prepare for this later sketch. It's funny how whenever you draw something, it doesn't look exactly the same the second time. I like my eyes better here. I like my mouth better here in this picture. But anyways, I wanted to show you both. This was the first sketch and kind of what is underneath this paint. You want to draw a simple sketch out first. You want to take your pencil and, looking at your reference picture, add different areas of texture to your fur and different shading. I shaded inside of my ears and up front on my mouth area, over here on the sides of the face, coming down the nose with my pencil some. Then after I did all of that, it's time to watercolor. So there is shading and pencil marks under my watercolor. Now I did less of this on the version that I was going to paint, and the reason I did that is I didn't want a lot of pencil marks showing through, even though you can still see some of them. So in this one I have less value drawn, just because I don't want to see all the pencil marks. Now, once this picture was in this version, I took an oil pastel, a white oil pastel, and I went over it in different areas. I looked at my value sheet to see the light areas. Definitely the whites of the eye. I put the oil pastel on. I also did that over here in the tips of the ears. I noticed that there was a lot of light value on the tips of the ears. So I put my white oil pastel on the tips of the ears, and I just looked in general at my picture where there were lighter areas, and I put white oil pastel in those areas. Now, if you don't have oil pastels, you could totally use a white crayon. The same thing is going to happen. When you apply the watercolor paint, it's going to be resisted by the oil in the oil pastel, and it's not going to stick to that area. It's going to kind of stand up and run off. And it's going to end up looking cool once you put the watercolor on it. So kind of the tips of the ears, different areas in the face, and then I took the white oil pastel and went all over my whiskers. Every whisker that I had drawn out, I put oil pastel on because I wanted it to stand out. And I also put oil pastel over the different curves in my mane. All of the little texture curves that I had already drawn out, I covered with an oil pastel so I could see all that texture once the watercolor was applied. Now with watercolor, it's important to remember that you want to start with your lightest values first and work your way to your darkest values. That's something a little different than acrylic painting. Acrylic's kind of like the opposite of that. But with watercolor, you want to start with that lightest color first and then build. I used cheap watercolors. I used Crayola watercolor, so nothing fancy. But I started out with my yellow watercolor and watered it down with some water, and I applied that all over the face, in most areas of the face, and to some of the ears, and a little bit to the mane. Different areas of the mane, I put this light yellow watercolor. After I did that, I looked at my value sheet, and places that were a little bit dark, not super dark, but a little bit dark, I mixed up a yellow and orange. And when I mix up watercolors, I just mix it up on the top of this tray right here, just on the side of the pan. I mix up the watercolor. So my next value was like a yellowy orange. And I put a little bit of that inside of the ears, coming down the nose. You can see it scattered around. I put some of it in the mane, framing the face, kind of under like the cheekbones. After that, I mixed up an even darker value. I did an orange and brown, and I put that in the deeper shadows of the picture. So definitely down here around the face, coming up kind of in that goatee, kind of scruffy area of the mane, above the eyes, in the ears. And the last darkest value is like that deep chocolate brown. And I went into the very darkest values that I saw on this value sheet and added that. Little brush strokes of that deep dark chocolate brown. I have some up here around the ears, some right underneath the mouth area, under the eyes, around the face, in the mane. I wanted the mane to have every one of those values running through it. So I had all the values, the light yellow, the orange brown, and the chocolate brown throughout the mane. Okay, and that's why this piece of paper is important, because it helps you determine where to put your different colors. Now, after I finished all of that, I let it dry, and on just a separate sheet of paper, of watercolor paper, I drew out the little cartoon mouse, and I watercolored him using similar colors. I just added some red brown to his ears and to his fur. And I did take a chocolate brown oil pastel and kind of outline where the edges of his ears are and his tail to finish him off. I also took some of this chocolate brown and went in and put a little bit more texture in my ears and kind of pulled them out by outlining them a little bit. As you can see, I took a black Sharpie and filled in my nose and the dark parts of my eyes to make them pop and leap forward. Now, this project has several steps. The drawing takes a little while to make sure it's all equal, but I think you'll be really pleased with the finished result. It's fun. It's probably something you haven't drawn before, and it's interesting to look at, and it has a cool story behind it. I hope you've enjoyed this art extra, and if you do attempt this at home, I would love to see it. You can send it to me using the same phone number that you use for your other projects, or you can send it to me in the Google Classroom stream. Thank you.